Cash games, head-to-heads, double-ups, 50-50s are a waste of time, at least for almost everyone. We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by Underdog Fantasy. Hey, I'm not trying to be the bad guy here, and I will level with you always, but you're probably not the next Adam Levitan. I'm certainly not. But this is what a cash game graph looks like if you're a part of the top 1% of players on DraftKings and FanDuel. And Adam posted an article on Established with Run that I highly recommend, but a 13.7% ROI, super impressive. These are my results from a video that I posted earlier this summer, so definitely check that one out. But as primarily a GPP player, it's clear that Adam and I are playing two completely different games. And that's okay, but in today's DFS meta, what matters is what people should be doing now. And in my opinion, there's three main arguments against playing cash games, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we dig in, I do want to thank the sponsor of this video, runthesims.com, a premium fantasy tools site for season-long DFS and prop betting. A new spin on fantasy sports and DFS tools where we're leaning on 10,000 simulations for each game as the primary value driver. And as many of you know, is so impressed with what they're building. Run the Sims is now the official tools partner of the Joe Holka Show, the exact optimizer and data that I'll be using to construct my own DraftKings and FanDuel lineups all season long. We talk about it a lot around here, but anytime you can find a system that simplifies everything into one easy to use product, that's going to be incredibly valuable for every level of player. So if you'd like to make the smart move, like many from the community have already done, feel free to use the link in the description below and to join us in leveraging the next frontier of lineup optimizers and simulation tools, which by the way, that link does support the channel. So thank you. And if you'd like $50 off of your NFL season bundle, be sure and use code HOLKA at checkout. Also giving away 4 signed NFL jerseys at the end of the month. Absolutely free to join if you register at Pristine Auction with code HOLKA or use the link in the pinned comment of this video. All of this takes less than 30 seconds to enter, so don't miss out. We'd be awesome to give away a bunch of stuff from Pristine Auction throughout the season, but we got to prove that we're worthy as a group, as a community. Can you help me out with that? All right, let's do this. Reason number one not to play cash games is that most people just don't play high enough volume for it to be worth it. Well, let's talk through a quick example. Let's say that you're fortunate enough to generate a long-term 10% ROI in cash games. You're going to play $100 per slate, the main slate, and a couple small slates each and every week, which I do really recommend, by the way, to continue to play short slates. But let's keep this example really elementary for now. If you play 20 weeks, maybe you're mixing in a little bit of preseason and post DFS, 5 slates per week, that's 100 slates per NFL season. That's $10,000 invested over the course of a season, and with a 10% ROI, you're going to net about $1,000 in profit. That sounds great. I'm going to continue to refer back to this thread that I posted on Twitter earlier this year, because I think as having this example makes it a lot easier to picture what I'm talking about. But let's pretend that you spend 5 hours per week on DFS research and building lineups, so about 1 hour per slate on average. That's 5 hours per week and 20 weeks, 100 hours of research over the entire NFL season. So basically, if we're taking into consideration that profit, $10 an hour. Not too terrible, because if you can increase your volume a little bit and decrease that research time at all, that hourly rate does look a lot better. And that's to say, if you do maintain that same 10% ROI. So the same example as above, let's say that you play 500 per slate. That gets you a $50 per hour number, 1,000 per slate, $100 an hour, and so on. My main point here is that I would just argue that cash games are only a worthwhile investment if we're talking purely about the ROI of your time, if you can afford to play that high volume. Unless you just enjoy the process of finding that optimal lineup, which is totally okay, by the way. The point is, I just think that cash games are only viable for a certain type of person or a certain type of player, and tournaments just make a whole lot more sense. So let's get into the next topic here. The second reason to stop playing cash games is that a high win rate basically required. And it's pretty simple. If you're closer to a break-even player in that example that we just talked about before, those numbers get progressively worse quickly. So if you're not having a 10% ROI or better, your upside is dramatically lower than doing the right things in GPPs, as long as we're playing the right type of GPPs. I'll say this, the next example, this is by far the most important part. Reason number 3 to stop playing cash games is that in GPPs, you should just be playing a much smaller percentage of your bankroll. You have to get used to just having those weeks where you return $0. You have to show a little bit of discipline and also know your personal risk of ruin. I talk about that a lot, especially in the bankroll management video that you guys have already seen. If you're used to playing a certain amount and you've been playing a little bit of cash games, I would scale that number back significantly if you are going to be making that transition to GPP only. Because grinding cash, definitely not for everyone. In fact, I think they still might just be for almost no one at this point. But before you go, I want to hear what your split is between GPPs and cash games. Let me know in the comments, all right? Good talk.